Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, hang out. This nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
GM Fiat. In your game, is it a cudgel or is it a cool moment waiting to happen?
Hey guys, jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter. Get weekly gaming tips as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
GM Fiat. That is what we're discussing. That is what we're talking about. That's what I decree.
The first thing we did was look up the definition of GM Fiat on Urban Dictionary. And there it says the GM is always right. No matter what the dice say, no matter what anybody else says, he's right. Get over it.
Yeah, it was kind of tyrannical, a little dickish, and it's wording, very grognardish, to say the least.
Now, our off-camera conversation, you had a different definition than I did.
Yes.
So, what was your definition of Fiat?
Well, let's look at Fiat itself first.
Well, we looked up Fiat, and the term says a formal announcement or proposition, a decree. So that means it's like, all right, this is a definitive thing.
Yeah, and that is kind of how I see it, honestly.
Okay.
But see, I see it as being a thing for the rules that don't exist, right?
Okay.
And in RPGs, there's always plenty of rules that don't exist. Now, there's also the thing that is, it's GM Fiat, but with the addendum of, when we check this later, we'll go by what the rules actually say. We do that all the time. It's like, instead of flipping through a couple books, figure something out, especially if it's a really wordy system,
right,
where there's a lot of books, we're like, the DM just makes a call in the field, we go with it.
Sometimes it takes a while to actually look up rules, and it's much more fun and enjoyable to remain in the game than to care about a specific ruling in the moment. Combat already takes a lengthy time sometimes, so why slow it down by having everything grind to a halt to go flipping through manuals?
So yeah, so that's kind of like one way we use GM Fiat regularly in our games. Now you had a different definition of it.
So my definition of GM Fiat is...
Fuck the rules. I think that's what you said.
Kind of. I was more along the lines of, okay, normally in this specific rules situation, it would be X and the player would be right. But because of something that either the players don't know about or something that you've set up, there is a reason why this particular situation breaks standard rules. And sometimes you can't get into why it's not working. Why all of a sudden this particular situation, which worked 5 minutes ago, isn't working now. And it will destroy the immersion in the game to actually break that out and go into the mechanics of what's going on, or it could ruin some bigger surprise that you have going on.
Or the players just don't know, is essentially what it comes down to. But now, like, when we looked up the definition really was more or less like, no, it's because this is what I want. Yeah. Is the way the word, it wasn't worded exactly verbatim like that, but that was kind of the gist.
Yeah, it said the GM is always right, accept it, move on. I'm like, all right, it's a bit harsh. Now, yeah, the 5th edition Dungeon Master's Guide does say the GM is always right. You're more than free to change whatever rules you want and make up things on the fly. And I love that that's actually printed there, giving the DMs all the power that was stolen from them in previous editions, where every little nuance and crevice was explored and statted out and ruled.
So now that being said, your players also have the freedom and ability to play with someone else. If they don't like enough of your rules.
That's 100% correct. And there's times that I've seen that type of situation happen where DM's like, well, this is the way I'm running things, and people say, well, okay, well then have fun running them by yourself.
Well, so that's just it. Like, so where's the happy middle ground? Is it that GM Fiat is junk and you shouldn't use it? Is it something that they should just remove out of the game and doesn't belong there? Or, is there some middle ground that we can find common ground on? And is there a specific way to use GM Fiat in your game that improves the experience for everybody? It isn't just, it's just not a hammer to beat the piss out of your players with. And I guess that's the problem. Like, there was definitely like this old schooler way of gaming, where some of the grognards and old schoolers are like, it's us against them, which is the most ridiculous thing in a game like Dungeons and Dragons anyway, because as the GM, I have all the books, I have everything at my disposal. It's not even a fair match. But I've seen players do it too. Like, I can beat the DM, like I can come up with blah, blah, blah. Well, the DM makes the rules, essentially, GM Fiat, so you can't. Like, he can do things you can't do.
Yes.
Like, not follow the rules.
He has the ability to break the rules. He has the ability to say, okay, well, you know what? This creature has got a plus 47 to hit because of X, Y, and Z, and therefore, unless I roll a 1, I don't miss. And, I've got this other power that says if I roll a 1, I still hit.
So, that being said, okay, well, in my game, many sessions ago, Bloodfang, when he was just Bloodfang, I don't even think he was Victorious yet, or whatever his name is, Victus yet. They're in a tavern. He's like, I want to pick up one of the really big tables and throw it at our enemies. And I think he had like a 20 strength at that time, or maybe even a 22. Mm-hmm. And I was like, sure, there's no rules for that, right? So that's where GM Fiat comes into me. It's like, well, as the GM, I have to abjugate on the fly, and I'm like, well, you know what? Just make a strength-based attack roll. I'm not going to give you a disadvantage, and I'm not going to give you. I'm going to let you be proficient with the attack. It's a big-ass table. It's probably it's pretty hard to miss, and you're immensely strong.
Right.
And so I said, all right, well, it didn't do a ton of damage when it hit, but it knocked them down or whatever, and it hit a group of them at once. Mm-hmm. So in my opinion, that's how you use GM Fiat. You use GM Fiat to add fun to the game.
Now, I had a similar situation that was actually ruled in the other direction. We were, playing, and, you weren't the DM. I was playing with non-Nerdarchy people, and I was playing a barbarian, and we were at a gathering, a feast, whatever have you, and there were tables where multiple people were sitting at. So I was like, all right, well, we're being attacked by archers. So I'm like, well, I want to grab the table and use it as full cover and approach the archers. He was like, all right, no problem. I agreed with him there. Well, then once I actually got to the guy, or to the archers, I wanted to make an attack with it, just pretty much, shoulder it into them, mm-hmm. and then drop the table and pull out my weapon and be able to fight next round. Well, because it was more of an improvised weapon, even though I'm a barbarian, I'm used to, swinging a two-handed weapon, he only gave me like a die 4 on the damage. And I was like, so this thing that is so much bigger than my regular weapon, I'm not swinging it with accuracy, but I'm literally just colliding with them. All of my weight behind it, you're giving me, the lower damage die. But he's the DM in that situation. I'm not going to be like, well, I think this should be such and such. No, right. I have to just accept it and like, okay, well, that wasn't apparently the best maneuver other than getting the cover for the round of movement. I could have dropped the thing and picked up my weapon and swung it normally. But
well, yeah, and in that case, like, that's literally what the rules say. It does die 4. Improvised weapons do a die 4. Or if there is something that is equivalent to, to that weapon, you can use that instead.
Right.
Granted, there isn't a combat table. Now, you might, I might have ruled it was a club or a great club instead, but still, sometimes it's just about keeping the game moving, and the GM doesn't want to think about it. Can I get the next person going?
And it's not worth the fight. You agree with the GM's call, and you move on. You can complain about it later, as I've done actually, I think a couple of times now, but like. Ultimately, did it affect the course of play in the game? No. Did it affect my enjoyment in the game? No. I had a great time.
And he let you do it. Like, so there's that. Like, I've seen GMs go, no.
No, that's not a weapon.
Or just no to whatever you're trying. You just can't do that. Why not?
There's no rules here. It doesn't say what the damage is on the table.
Yeah, to me, GM Fiat is saying yes and saying roll a die, and then even if in my mind I say there's no way this will work, I'll go, you can try that and roll a die, and then I'm like, oh fuck, you rolled a 20, something has to happen.
Well, those type of things have happened in my game with Crazy Scott. He's done the craziest stuff with his wizard. It's like, oh, I'm out of spell slots, and I forget that in this edition cantrips are free, so I'm just going to steal the guy's dagger. All right, it's going to be an opposed roll. All right, he crits it. All right, now I'm going to stab the guy. Oh, crit that too. Look at that. You just severed his neck with his own dagger. Oh my god.
Yeah, or fancy beholder rodeoing.
That's happened as well. And like, it seems he does better when he decides to do things his character should have no reason doing.
Why no person should have any reason doing. But yeah, and that's like a good use of GM Fiat. Like, is when you're going to come away from a game session, and because you said yes to something or you made a rule on the fly, like there's a story to be told. Like just shutting things down and preserving your monsters and your precious story, that's the kind of shit that's going to be forgotten, by the end of the next session.
There are crazy things that happen in Scott's game where Nerdarchy saves the world. Just Bart. He was playing a crazy monstrosity of a character because of things that Scott had set up, and he wound up getting a Vorpal weapon, and against the main boss, he rolled a natural 20. Now, some DMs would have been like, oh, well, I'm going to use my Fiat here, and I'm going to stop this from going on because there's this whole thing that, saves this character's life. Scott ran with it.
And it created an epic story to be told later on, and a fun moment at the table. So, to me, that's when you're using GM Fiat properly, is when you're creating fun moments at the table, when, you're using the rule of cool. Like, as a GM, there's going to be other monsters. If you had something you were trying to do, you can try and do it again later. You get another chance the next session or a couple sessions down the road, or it turns out this guy had an evil twin brother or whatever.
Yeah, I was gonna say the exact same thing.
What is it, marked for death when there's like triplets or something?
Yep.
Yeah. So there's always that. There's no reason for it. GM Fiat should be weighed against the rule of cool, in my opinion. Is this going to make the experience at the table more fun? Are my players going to want to continue playing in my game because of the rules that I'm making up on the fly, or the changes that I'm making? Is it making the game more interesting? These are always the things that I'm going to ask myself, and maybe sometimes in retrospect I have to ask myself and go back and go, no, I could have did that better.
Yeah, when you're going to make a rules call and possibly try to change the rules on something, think about a couple months from now, tomorrow, or a couple years from now, will your be players talking about this story as a, damn it, that DM, he did such and such and such and such, or it's like, holy crap, do you remember that time when Aeson stole the guy's dagger and killed him with it? I mean, that's
nothing. Rarely do the things in my game that get talked about are the things that I planned as the DM. And I found that true for nearly all the games I've been in. It's only when your ideas meet the player's creativity that these moments really truly happen and come alive.
I agree, and that's why this is or actually all role-playing games are a cooperative storytelling situation. It's more than just a collaboration of people at the table. It's a collaboration of their ideas and the fun that you all have together.
Like even in the game that I'm currently running, the Scarlet Sisterhood, like for some of those players, the idea when I go, hey, you tell me what happened, or you discover 4 rumors, here's 2 of them, you have to come up with the other 2. They're like, what? Oh, okay, and that's cool. You create this shared world, this shared experience, and that's how I feel like you should be doing it. Or that's how I feel like it should be done. So I'm not going to tell you how to play your game. Whatever's fun for you, you do that. But you let us know in the comments below. What do you think? How to use GM Fiat in your game? Do you agree with it? Disagree with it? You prefer like a Pathfinder or a 3.5 where everything is completely spelled out and the GM just doesn't have to think about anything? While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can check out all the awesome, ever-growing articles over on Nerdarchy.com.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.